Nir was driving his 1-month-old Model Y in Folsom, California. As he approached an intersection, he noticed a Toyota that seemed like it wasn't going to stop. As soon as Nir realized that the Toyota was indeed not going to stop, he tried to speed up and move over, but he couldn't dodge it in time, and the Toyota T-boned his Tesla. Thanks to the Tesla's strong build, Nir and his wife weren't injured at all. The Toyota's airbags deployed, and it took heavy damage from the impact. The Toyota's front bumper and hood took a lot of damage, as we can see in the side cam footage. After the impact, the Toyota's license plate became stuck in the side of the Model Y. Both the responding police officer and the insurance adjuster were impressed with the Teslacam footage and concluded that the Toyota driver was at fault. It took over 2 months for repairs to be completed. Can you guess the total repair cost to fix the Model Y? Put your guess in the comments and we'll tell you the total at the end of this video. No cheating! Steve was driving north on I-280 in his Model Y. Autopilot was engaged and he had his 11-year-old daughter in the passenger seat. Steve thought nothing of passing an older Toyota as he headed toward the fast lane so he could pass traffic. Just as he began to change lanes, that same Toyota suddenly appeared off his fender, moving into his lane at high speed and accelerating. Instead of maintaining his lane, the driver continued accelerating and drifting to the left, crossing the yellow line and smashing into the concrete median, sending a cloud of debris flying across multiple lanes. Steve said the other driver didn't appear to move or react at all when driving past, and he even commented to his daughter that he's going to get into an accident driving that way, just before he crashed into the barrier. But the driver just kept right on going. Steve thought the driver might have passed out or fallen asleep, so he activated Autopilot again before calling 911 to report the situation. He gave them his contact info in case they wanted his Teslacam footage. Steve was soon contacted by the Highway Patrol, and they informed him that the driver hadn't been injured, but they believed he'd suffered a seizure after learning he'd been prescribed seizure medication. Terrence was driving his Model 3 in Melbourne, Australia. He'd just stopped for a pedestrian when... roll the jingle.
Jump in! Honda bumped!
A Honda crashed into him at full speed. Both vehicles pulled over and the drivers exchanged information. Fortunately, the insurance claim process went smoothly. Terrence says the repair process went smoothly as well, with everything getting sorted out within 2 weeks of the accident. This submitter's roommate Laser was driving home after a 12-hour shift at work when the driver of a Subaru behind him got into an argument with the driver behind them. Laser didn't actually see what kind of car it was, but he thinks it was probably a Honda. After stopping at a red light, the possibly Honda driver got out of his vehicle and started banging on the Subaru driver's door. Then he started rocking the vehicle. Laser doesn't know what led up to this, but he hit the juice pedal and sped away, not wanting to become the next target of this guy's ire. James was traveling north toward New Hampshire for his aunt's funeral. He merged into the passing lane to allow room for a vehicle entering the highway. That's when he saw an object in the road. He figured that if he tried to swerve, it might go under his tires and cause a tire to blow out, potentially causing a major accident. Instead, he decided to drive over the top of it. The Tesla immediately started screaming at him with all sorts of error messages telling him to get off the road. He took the first exit he could and parked at a gas station, and he realizes how ironic that is. The car shut down nearly all functions and displayed a myriad of error messages, essentially amounting to, "You aren't driving this car anymore." When he got out, he saw what he figured could only be battery coolant leaking everywhere. He filed an insurance claim and had his Tesla towed to the nearest Tesla-certified collision center. The assessor said fixing it would cost about $22,000 in parts and labor. The owner of the collision center offered to buy the car for $48,000, even though James only paid $47,000 for it back in 2020, so his insurance provider is going to pay for the repairs before James sells it to the owner of the collision center. That just goes to show that buying a Tesla can be a good investment even if you crash it. Speaking of investing, there's a new great way to invest with our sponsor, Masterworks. Masterworks lets you invest in multi-million-dollar paintings by Picasso, Andy Warhol, Banksy, and other famous artists. Masterworks makes adding art to your portfolio affordable by enabling members to collectively invest in these paintings. Well, in these economic times, art is a great hedge against inflation, and contemporary art, the kind Masterworks offers, has outpaced the S&P 500 by 164% between 1995 and 2021. We are huge fans of Banksy. He does what you are not supposed to do in a formal setting, like shredding a painting after it's sold at an auction. The art is held until Masterworks thinks it is a good time to sell, and from there, returns are distributed to investors. So far, they've sold 3 paintings to date, each returning over 30% net IRR to investors. Legally, I have to add, past performance is no guarantee of future results. If you'd like to diversify your portfolio and join Masterworks, you can sign up with our custom link in the description, masterworks.art/whambam. This next video is from Benny in Sweden. It was the last weekend of the downhill skiing season, and after a night in the cabin, he saw some tracks in the snow that he suspected came from a moose. Since the tracks had come close to his Tesla, he checked his Sentry Mode video, and indeed, they had been left by a moose. Benny's glad it didn't get angry when it got flashed by the Sentry Mode lasers. Alyssa was driving her Model Y in New Orleans, Louisiana. She had to brake for a teenage boy who was attempting to turn along the road. Unfortunately, he underestimated the turn and fell into a ditch. James was cruising on I-75 on his way to work in his 3-week-old Model Y. A Ford pickup in front of him ran over a piece of steel on the highway, kicking it up and shooting it over into the right lane. James saw it coming and had his hands on the wheel to take over for Autopilot, swerving just in time to miss the object. Watching the metal piece in his rearview mirror, he saw it bounce off the pavement and directly into the windshield of a pickup behind him. It cracked the glass, so he pulled over to make sure the driver was okay. The driver was a bit shaken up, so James helped her take some photographs of the damage while she contacted her employer, who owned the truck. James told her he had footage of the incident, and they exchanged contact information so he could send her the video. The piece of steel had gone clean through the windshield, coming to rest in the center console. If there had been a passenger in the truck, or if she'd been driving any further back, the accident could have been fatal. There was glass everywhere, but the driver was okay. James let her sit in his Tesla while she called her husband, and he was furious when he heard that her boss had asked her if she'd be able to keep driving to Detroit. James doesn't think her boss had a good understanding of how large the object actually was. Marcus was driving his Model Y in Citrus Heights, California, when a truck ran a red light. Marcus slowed down quickly to avoid a collision, but the driver behind him didn't slow down fast enough. Marcus submitted a claim to his insurance provider, and they'll deal with the other driver's insurance provider for him. She'd bumped into him somewhat lightly, so there was only a small scuff visible. Marcus feels bad for the young lady who'd hit him and was tempted to just let it go, but in the end, he just couldn't take the chance in case a bigger issue is found later on, especially considering all the sensitive sensors incorporated into the body of the Tesla. Garner found this Sentry Mode footage showing someone having his way with his Model 3 performance. Alrighty then, moving on. This clip features an evil self-driving EV, but it isn't a Tesla. A Segway went rogue, attacking another car while Pops and Crackles was unplugging his Model 3. He says it's a good thing his legs had launch control. No cars were harmed in the making of this video. Fadi was driving his Model 3 in Tempe, Arizona, when an SUV changing lanes on Arizona State Route 101 sideswiped another vehicle before rolling over. He wasn't able to check on the occupants of the rolled vehicle since it was on the other side of the highway and it wasn't safe to stop, but thankfully other drivers were able to pull over and assist. Autopilot wasn't engaged, and Fadi was really surprised that none of the safety systems activated or detected the imminent crash. Fadi sent the video to the Arizona Department of Public Safety for them to use in their investigation. Chow Ma was driving his Model 3 in Zhengzhou, China. He's always had confidence in Autopilot, so this situation really intrigued him. Autopilot was engaged when a white Hyundai was about to move into Chow's lane from the left. He waited for his Tesla to respond by braking just like it had in previous incidents, but it didn't react at all. He took over in time to change lanes. Luckily, the car on his right wasn't following closely, or else he might have caused an accident. He says he's encountered similar incidents lots of times, and Autopilot has always reacted flawlessly, so he's got a question for our viewers. What would you do in this situation? Let Autopilot handle the situation on its own, slam on the brakes, or change lanes to the right? Robert was driving his Model 3 in Louisville, North Carolina, when a deer jumped out in front of him without warning. He thought the danger had passed after the deer crossed the highway, but he continued along slowly just in case there was more than one. Sure enough, a second deer appeared, jumping the guardrail just ahead of him. He swerved and the deer dodged as well. They both made it out unscathed. Maximo was driving his Model 3 on a highway in Belgium when, all of a sudden, a truck up ahead lost a wheel. The wheel rolled past him and into a construction zone. Luckily, this happened on a weekend and the construction zone was empty. Phew, that was a close call. The total cost to repair Near's Tesla Model Y that was T-boned by a Toyota came to $19,000 US. How close did you get? Okay, we need to follow up with James and let you know how his insurance process went. Right after hitting the unidentified object, he passed a truck that was stopped on the side of the road. He couldn't help but wonder, could the thing he'd run over have been from that truck? James' wife watched the videos multiple times, sometimes frame by frame, in an attempt to get the company name off the cab of the truck. James told her that the truck might have been rented, or the owner might not have even been driving it, but she insisted that he try to contact the company, arguing that the worst they could do is decline to cover the repairs. He ended up calling the company and described what had happened. He told them he had video of it, and the guy on the phone seemed pretty dismissive, but he asked for the footage anyway. James sent it over, but he didn't hear anything back, so he went to bed before heading to work the next morning. At about 9 a.m., he was contacted by a representative from the business who said they knew one of their trucks had dropped apart on that highway and had to be towed away. But they hadn't heard about anyone running over it, so they hadn't filed an insurance claim. The rep told James that he'd seen the video and asked for more details. He was very apologetic and promised to start an insurance claim. Later, James' insurance agent contacted him to say they were working out the details and that the trucking company's insurance would be covering at least part of the repair cost. James apologized profusely to his wife for doubting her and promised her a nice night out on the town.